Hey everybody, my name is Andrew Davis and you are watching Conversations in Prop Culture, brought to you by my sponsor, Mixum Printing, the smarter way to print. Printing your creative project can be confusing, stressful, but Mixum is here to make it easy. I know I've never printed one, but I speak to so many people and it is probably one of the hardest things is figuring out printing. And so Mixum actually offers an amazing tool called their Instant Quote Calculator to let you get as many quotes as you want for free, as well as 24-hour customer service. And Mixum is here to make sure your printing experience runs smoothly from start to finish. And they have a range of premium printing options and materials. And the company has printed so many people's Kickstarters on this very show. And all those people say extremely nice things about Mixum. And they really do deliver an amazing product. And what you buy and what you see and everything that is out there, and some of the comics, if you backed a bunch of Kickstarters, are from Mixum, and they are amazing. And they actually offer services in the United States, Canada, Australia, and the UK. And Mixum can print and reach your audience anywhere in the world. So if you're ready to print smarter and not harder, head over to Mixum.com. And right now they're running a promotion where listeners of this show can drop my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab of a current order to get 5% discount on their first order. And believe me, and I'm sure my guest is going to explain in a second here as well, that every percentage matters. Whether you just reached your goal or you tripled or quadrupled your goal, every little discount matters. So that is Mixam.com. Again, type my name, Andrew Davis, in the message tab to get 5% off your first order. And so obviously I got returning guest J.S. Earls. So welcome back, man.
Hey, yeah. And I wanted to add to that, since you're bringing up Mixum, that I know that Scout and some other indie publishers have used them for projects too. So if anybody has picked up some of the other, when you go to their site, you'll see the publishers that they've worked with. And if you picked up any of those books, then you know the quality that they have.
And they have amazing quality, and they really do deliver a competitive price. And also, even if they're slightly more expensive, the quality is really what matters. And when you're on Kickstarter, not to get off on a tangent, but yeah, it matters because it changes the way I view books. It makes me want to come back to a bunch of people's Kickstarters when you have a better, cleaner book. And so it's super important in that regard. But you got a lot going on right now. And you got a Kickstarter going on, and obviously I want to help get that thing funded, and it's Nemo the Lad, issue 1. So what is the basic premise? Because it's a very interesting comic.
It's it's kind of plays off of the old kid genius, boy genius kind of stories way back when. There were actually some of the first like steampunk and kind of oriented stuff too. They did that a lot with dime novels and all kinds of stuff way back when. But but basically back when Jules Verne and H.G. Wells and all those guys were getting science stuff going, that's what a lot of what inspired this story. And just the fact of that, like, I didn't know when I was doing research for something else on Jules Verne, that's when I found out that he had done like 54 novels in his exploration series. And I'm like, okay, I can only name like 4 or 5. So I'm like, so I was like really fascinated when I was looking up the stuff. And then that's when I found out. And then a lot of them, I think there had been at that point, this is like 10 years ago, 15 years ago, there were about, I think like 15, 20 of them that hadn't even been, either they hadn't been adapted into translated into English yet because he's a French author, or they had very poor translations into English that were just really not good and did not like read well and everything. But basically, when I was doing that research, I discovered that as most like Nemo or Jules Verne fans know now, that that Nemo is Indian, but of India, but that's not what Jules Verne originally wanted. He actually originally wanted him to be Polish, and wanted his family to have been killed when they were rebelling against Russia. But at that time, one of the number one places that French books were selling was in Russia. So his publisher said, no, he can't be Polish. They just had a rebellion against Russia. You have to change it to something else. And there's some other things like that I kind of stumbled across, and that's what made me think. I was like, well, what would that be like? Like, I don't want to do something like just for like controversy's sake of well, let's make him Polish to do something different. But just the other things that I was seeing too is like, okay, well, he had these alternate versions. I was like, what if I did an alternate version? And one of the things that I thought would be just kind of fun that I hadn't really seen done before was like Nemo when he was younger. I know that he has, I mean, now from other research, that he's made appearances and things in different anime and some other stuff. But of course, those are the India versions. So again, it's kind of different. But it was just like I was just like thinking about those things and like the kind of the whole spirit of adventure and things like that. And I was just I just thought, you know, it would be really fun to do him and show him, because I do think it's fun with comics and things and movies or whatever when they show like, well, what was that person like before they became, you know, whatever, Hannibal Lecter or whatever, or like show them when they're very old.
Go right to Hannibal Lecter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the first thing off my mind. I mean, so, but, you know, because a lot of people think of Nemo as a very bad, evil guy. But I mean, a lot of that was because there's severe tragedies and stuff that he had witnessed and a lot of injustices. And I'm like, well, but what was he like before that? Because he was obviously, because before that, he was still a genius. So let's say he was a genius when he was a kid. And I decided to have him be with a sister because I have like 3 sisters. And I have sisters-in-law and all kinds of stuff now, and so I'm kind of used to that relationship. And then also, I wanted to give them somebody to talk to. It's one of the things that I have found through doing a lot of professional writing is, like unless you're doing like a voiceover thing, or it's like Wolverine where he's talking to himself a lot the whole time or whatever, it really helps to have somebody with the character as they're doing things. And so that's why I brought a sister into it. Plus, I thought it'd be interesting just to kind of show the difference.
So there's a lot of stuff going on here.
Yeah. Yep.
We're talking about Jules Verne's and his world, and obviously that world and what he has built. And I'm not a Verne's, expert by any chance. But I know that the world very much is sort of set up, and then there's all these stories in the world, and the rules don't change dramatically between book to book. And so what was this like, though? Because obviously we're going into, Nemo when he's a kid. He's obviously, or a teenager. I'm not exactly sure. But
he's supposed to be around 12 in my version. So it depends on the artist. It looks a little different depending on who draws him.
But I think the point that I'm getting at is that it's this idea that it's obviously significantly younger, going on adventures, and we're sort of seeing how he became, Captain Nemo and everything that was witnessed. And what was that like setting it up? Because you do have to stay within the world of Verne, per se, but also there is some, you don't want to go completely old school French that nobody can understand what he's saying. So where's that balance and those elements and incorporating it and also staying true to what it is? Because it is a bit tricky sometimes when you're playing in somebody else's sandbox 200 years later.
And I mean, one thing that I've learned, especially in the bigger person or bigger like whatever that you deal with, because I've dealt with other properties and different things before, and I've finally, I guess, learned that you're never going to make everybody happy. You're always going to try to find. I mean, if you're smart, you will always try to find a sweet spot where you are able to do some new things and try some different stuff out. But then also you want to, unless you don't respect the source material at any level, like you definitely want to point to it and hint at it. And some of the stories that we're doing are more like some of them obviously will relate like directly to the story, because I have a story basically in this. It's also like streamlined version. They're almost like Archie comic strips in a way. They're like 8-page things, so it's kind of like streamlined tellings of the stuff, and but some of it connects directly, and then other parts I've kind of connected them even more so than what he necessarily did, even though he connected some things, because he has um, another villain who is a bit more villainous, named Robert or Robert, how you say it, and I kind of I'm bringing that character into it too. It's kind of like a little bit of a nemesis for Nemo, and there's all these. He has these different connections that a lot of people don't know about unless you're like a hardcore Jules Verne fan.
So what is that like? Because this is where it gets interesting. Is that
Yeah.
I am not a hardcore Jules Verne fan, but somebody might come into this, know a little bit about it, read certain things that he did, obviously have a little bit of information, and you want to placate to sort of a bunch of people where
Right.
you want the average person who's read one or two, whether they had to read it in high school or they fell across it or they got sick of the normal, science fiction stuff, and then they're deep diving.
Right.
Which, they're now going below the surface, no pun intended,
Right.
there. But you also want to placate to somebody saying, oh, I'm just coming in for the first time. And so that's tricky to some degree. And then also creative licensing as well.
Right.
Sort of plays into this too, and really finding that, because that's where this is super interesting, is that we're dealing with a property and you're staying within, I think, the boundaries, but you get some creative freedom with it too. And I think it's public domain at this point.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. Pretty much anything over 100 years is so, and his is well over 100 years now for most of it. Definitely at least that story. But and as I said, I touch on a lot of them. Pretty much all of his. I think his last one was around like 1905. So pretty much all of his stuff is public domain. But like you said, you got to try to. You got to try to balance it, and honestly, it serves you well to try to balance it and not do anything super crazy. I mean, I kind of feel like I have a decent amount of freedom because, like I said, he's Polish, so obviously this is kind of like an alternate universe version of him, but it still tries to stay within the same kind of time period and stuff. So it's still more like kind of steampunk technology, but then also that's the beginning of electricity and some other things. So it's fun to play in that area, I guess. And but I've also tried to gear it more towards. I was gearing it more towards kids, and then Scout Comics, their kids line, really liked it. So then I've even like geared it more towards kids. So it's I don't know, like it's more character, it's more fun and kind of funny, and there's different things that we do.
To even talk about that, because what's super cool about this is that obviously if you read the books, you have to use your imagination.
Yeah.
And there's some illustrations that gives an idea of what to imagine, but obviously we are in a steampunk cyberpunk era.
Right.
I love, I play cyberpunk. I play it the correct way. Everybody plays it the wrong way. I play it like Grand Theft Auto. Okay? It's the only way you should play the game. I'm still on level 2 of the first story arc, but I legitimately have an infinite amount of handgun bullets. It's phenomenal. And my baseball batting average in that game is amazing. But anyway, I digress. This is cool, and this comic is very cool because there is all this cool mechanic stuff and steampunk and cyberpunk stuff in there. I mean, more steampunk, but I think cyberpunk and steampunk are
and what they call like clock punk, because it's like clock stuff.
And all that stuff is only gotten bigger. I mean, it's super cool with where comics have gone. And I'm not an ultra steampunk fan. I'm definitely more into cyberpunk stuff now. And I like that entire genre and that, I guess dressing, for lack of a better word. But that's the other cool thing about this is that you get to showcase a lot of this stuff for really, I don't want to say the first time, but it's a very visual thing with these
Right.
stories. And so
Oh
what is that
yeah.
like? Because kids love that stuff.
Oh
And
yeah, and especially and that's one of the things I guess why I really liked the idea of it too is because kids really like being creative and like kind of figuring things out and stuff like that. So even just I mean they love having the gears and all that stuff. I mean
they
it's
love
just
Legos for a reason.
yeah, it's like they love mechanical stuff. So it's yeah, I mean that's fun. One of the things that I found, which I guess is why this makes it a little bit more fun with doing it more for like an all ages oriented. I mean, in some ways, I would say kind of like Pixar. Whereas like adults can enjoy it too, and I do have quite a few adult fans that are really into it. But like where I think some of the steampunk stuff goes wrong is it's so heavy deep into the steampunk stuff that they kind of lose all the other people and
Imagine if Cyberpunk was an all age game.
yeah, yeah,
No, no, no.
no,
I'm
seriously,
serious
yeah, it
about
could be.
this. No. If you take out certain elements of
Right,
Cyberpunk
right,
and
obviously.
I guess boiled down
Just have that setting.
and
Yeah,
you have the setting and you have a little bit of violence in it where
yeah,
you push the line a little bit so it's got an edge and it's got a shock factor and
yeah,
you build it up and you have maybe half the weaponry in it and
right,
half the options of being able to walk around with no clothes. You might have a very, very different game because it could be very enjoyable. It could be also very, you know, difficult and all that stuff. So then the
right,
reason why I bring all this up is that when you go into all age, that
yeah,
doesn't mean an adult can't read it and enjoy
right,
it. But
right,
also it goes into this idea that, if I have a kid and I don't have kids yet, I'm going to want to be able to play their video games with them. And
right,
that's the other thing that's super interesting about this is that I'm an avid reader. So I've read some of Joel Verne's stuff. I haven't read as much as other people. I think I read like
right,
one of his books. But, all of a sudden, maybe if this came out and I had a kid, I would want to read this book with my kid.
right,
And
right,
so now it becomes a very interesting thing because I'm introducing my child to something literary and something educational that's going to influence them to some degree. That's one of the great classics or has a connection to it. And then, because that's what you're sort of doing.
right.
And it's really, really, I think it's great. And I think it's smart to make it all age and not make it for the Jules Verne aficionado.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, one of the reasons why I had a sister instead of a brother too is because there are a lot of girls and stuff that have gotten into comics and gotten into pop culture and stuff. So I wanted, there to be a character for that too.
Oh man, I got to ask because I'm actually super curious about this because I've noticed that there's a lot more women now in
Oh,
comics as readers,
oh
and
yeah,
and I think that's been a very very slow growing trend.
yeah,
And I think that now, and I don't think it's equal. I think it's definitely more male dominated
oh yeah.
right now. But not even from a production standpoint, but from a fan standpoint. But when did you see that shift occurring? Because I sort of saw that shift starting to occur about 5 years ago.
I
And
well, I first honestly for me, I noticed something was different with when Iron Man came out because I was seeing a lot of females at the theater, and there were a lot of them that it's like I mean, you know, it's like Robert Downey Jr. isn't that cute anymore anymore like I mean they thought he was funny, but like it's not like they had crushes on him or something. I mean he's not like the guy who plays Thor and some of the other guys who were younger and studs and everything. I mean, not that there aren't women who liked it, but there's a lot of them that really found it really fun and entertaining and liked I think, and obviously a lot of them have gotten into the whole cosplay and getting into the dress up side of it and all that too. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely,
I'm going to ask
I think a lot of creators too. There's a lot of female creators in the last 5 years that have really started to break out.
So I'm actually super curious, and it's a tangent. This is the part where we get controversial. Do you think that with that cosplay outbreak, and
Mhm.
even with certain female creators that have broken out. Is that a fad? Because cosplay is tricky, and I understand that where certain people get into it, but then people fall out of it.
Oh yeah.
And even with comic creation, people get into it, and it's not one sex or the other. People
Right.
produce comics for 8 years, and then they realize, saying, "Wait a second, there's other ways I can make more money." Or they get sick and tired of it because, well, you could get burned out. It gets very competitive. I haven't produced a comic, and I don't know if I want to, because I look at this and I look how competitive it is and how toxic it gets,
Oh yeah.
and how much capital you need, and all the politics, and not Democrat Republican, but just who do you smooth up with, and who do you
Right.
know, and who do you have to really get close with, and how do you network, and you half the time you got to buy your way in a little bit,
Yeah.
and then you really bad creator deal your first 10 books,
Right.
right. And then even if you go out that route when you're going on Kickstarter and you get picked up by a publisher, they still want you to go on the Kickstarter route, which is a whole bigger issue where they don't trust you enough to take the gamble on you.
Right.
And that's a bigger issue in and of itself. And I mean, this is all just what I'm seeing, and I could be doing it completely wrong here, and correct me at any point. But did you find that even just more people getting into comics, and obviously with girls and women, is it more of where you think this is going as the norm, or do you think it's more of a fad, or do you think it's too early to tell? Because
yeah, I mean, I would say, I just think, I mean, I would say it with pop culture, period. Honestly, I mean, it's just, I think in general, we're just going to keep seeing more and more females, just because there are. I mean,
did you think
there is a lot of interest in sci-fi and superheroes and stuff now? And
so I was going to ask: is it also now there's less stigma? Because I don't know, you're significantly older than me. I'm 28.
Yeah.
When
I'm 102. Yep.
What? How old are you?
102.
Exactly. I thought you were about to say I'm 28 too, and I'm like, wow. If I could look like
you look terrible for your.
Yeah. If you look like 28, I'm not complaining. If you just said, "Hey, I'm 28," that'd be great. But did you also think that with pop culture in general, it's also the idea now you're not going to get shoved into a locker in high school,
right?
Because now it's cool because, well, Avengers Endgame, and wow, I'm really bad. Black Widow just came out, and a bunch of other movies just came out, and the name is slipping me, which is really bad. It legitimately came out like 3 days ago.
Shang-Chi or Shang-Chi? Is it Shang-Chi or Shang-Chi?
It might be Shang-Chi. I just didn't want to be offensive and get it wrong.
We'll say both.
Yelled at. So, did you also think that it's now cool to be like, "Oh man, we saw the new Marvel movie, and oh man, you got the first issue this character was in 30 years ago," and people are like, "Oh man, can I hang out with you now?"
Yeah.
Do you think that's also part of it too, because let's be realistic, there's so much social pressure when you're, in high school and even in college and even in, when you're young at your workplace. And if everybody's saying, "Oh man, I'm into this too," and you're like, "Oh yeah, I read the comics," that creates less social stigma to it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, definitely. And just the fact of, and just having the internet, just being able to find your groups and your cliques and your different, the people that are into the same stuff as you are, whatever it is, tabletop games, role playing, video game. I mean, whatever. I mean, you're going to find your people, and so it's a lot easier to connect in that way, I think. And then
the reason why I bring all of this up, and I'm promising it's going to make sense, is that obviously, Jules Verne and this book is very niche specific,
right?
But it also goes beyond niche specific, where it is definitely tackling that great American, classic literature, and hopefully a bunch of high schools still force, their students to read this type of stuff out there and read the classics, and people still read the classics. And so obviously with the internet, and this is another thing too, because this is I don't want to say this is a what if,
Right.
but this also expands what that story and these stories are, and what Nemo is exploring, and what he's
Right.
analyzing, and how we got there.
Yeah.
And and even the internet probably allows you to find that. So
Hmm.
what has that been like? Because it's very much an answer to something, and it's providing. Because I don't know if this is a what if per se. It's more
Right.
we got 20 years because we're thrown into Nemo 20 years as sort of a mid adult,
Right.
and we don't know what Nemo was like growing up. And
Right.
so, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, so yeah, you have area to play with there. I mean, that's what I was trying to think of other I know that was one of the cool, man, what was there was something that came out, a comic, and it was like really big, and it was because they found, it was like, well, at the time it was like I'm trying to think if it was Batman Year One or something else, but there was like the time period where they didn't. Oh no, that's what it was. It was yeah, one of my favorite movies, Batman Begins. They had a time period there that wasn't really covered very much in the comics, so then it allows you more freedom to explore that stuff, and that was kind of that, and that was definitely, that's kind of like the way that I was looking at this too. And also, and this is one of the things that I didn't expect, and it was weird. It kind of just, but it was because of the internet that I made these connections. But they, if people think that in Poland they don't know that Jules Verne originally wanted him to be Polish, is like they're crazy, because there are some hardcore Jules Verne and steampunk and like Nemo fans like in Poland. Like, I mean, they have some of the biggest, like strongest cultures and groups and fan groups and different things out there, who are super cool. And when I even brought up the idea of doing an alternate version, I mean, this is like 10 years ago, like they were freaking out of their minds, and they were posting about it on their places and stuff, and they were like, this is what Verne originally wanted, and they're like so into it. I'm like,
And so to even talk about that, because obviously you mentioned it, and I am curious because, you're not being disrespectful to Verne's work and
right,
Jules Verne's work by making this character Polish. And I
right,
don't think that the people in Poland are very upset either. I don't
no,
think that
they aren't.
so I think it's also that too, because you're not being disrespectful, or if
Yeah,
you're going to be disrespectful, or the saying is that I try not to hurt people unless
right,
I'm proving a point. If I
yeah,
have to prove a point and I hurt you, well, I was proving a bigger point, and well, you got caught in the fire here. But I
right.
don't think this is hurting anybody in any regard, and it's also very important because you could easily step over and start offending his
Oh
work,
yeah, yeah,
and you could start doing damage to the core of it. And then, well, that's not good. And that's why I don't like playing in people's sandboxes. Personally,
right.
it's not something I want to do, because I'm most likely going to cross those lines.
Yeah, it's
It's
not.
an
I mean,
art. It's an art.
it's tempting because it sounds more exciting and sexy, but I don't know. Like, to me, like I feel like, I mean, with a lot of things, it's like motivation is everything. Like if you have the right intentions and you're not trying to piss people off, you're usually okay, and it usually turns out okay. But if you're doing stuff and you're kind of trying to shove your views down one side or the other or whatever, I mean, you're gonna make people mad. I mean, it's just the way that, I mean, especially, good Lord, the way the country is right now, with America, it's like, I mean, you're either left or you're right. There's no in between. Although
You
most
got
of
to
the
pick a
people I
side.
talk to are in the middle. um, but like everybody's so afraid to say anything because everything is so polarized, and I don't
I
know.
know at least 15 comic graders who have no problem saying what they want to say, and
Oh
they
yeah, oh yeah, yep,
and God bless them, and I like a bunch of them too. It's and it's on both sides. It's on
oh
both
yeah,
sides.
oh
So,
yeah,
before anybody gets any idea and starts labeling people,
yeah,
it's on both sides. The 15 people I know,
yeah,
and it's crazy, but yeah. So obviously, I sort of want to change and dive a little bit more into deeper baseball with this.
Okay.
And what's super cool about this book is that at least the first issue is that it's got an anthology feel to it, but
Right.
obviously this is all when he was a kid, and it's divided into 3 stories, and each of them are 8 pages. And so, what was that decision to be made? Because this could have been one straight, 24-page book. This could
Right.
have been divided into 2 stories. It could have been just 4 pagers, and I don't know if this is an anthology. I'm not too sure what we label this as, but it's clear that there's a bunch of different artists working on the
Right.
3 different stories. There's a start, middle, and end to each of those stories. They sort of connect to each other, but they sort of don't. They
Right.
connect in the sense that this is exploring, Nemo's life at a particular point.
Yeah.
And that when we get to issue 2 and 3, obviously I'm assuming it's going to follow the similar format. So
Yeah.
what prompted all of this? Because it's a different way to tell a story.
Yeah, I mean, some of it is, especially when you're dealing with something this old, and you have, there's just so many different people that would like to be a part of it, or, there's different parts of it that appeal to them. I have a lot of artists that are tired of doing, me too, somewhat, tired of doing dark stuff and stuff that, especially in this day and age with the pandemic and everything, it's like we need some fun, we need some joy. And that's been one of the biggest compliments I've heard from people, is like when they look at stuff, they're like, man, I feel joy. Like when I look at it, like it reminds me of like being young and stuff, and it looks fun, and it's like, and I need fun, and that was a major driving factor for it, and was also one of the reasons why I made the decision, was so many people wanting to be involved, but then also wanting to keep it short, to keep the adventures short, so that they're mostly focused on being fun. As I said, there's kind of like a rival and stuff like that, but even with that, like I do some kind of fun things with it, and a lot of it is just, it's more about that, just to kind of part of it. Like I said, he has 54 novels in this exploratory series. It's like if I take 24 pages to tell each one, it's going to take forever. So some of it was like, I want people to know some of the other stories or elements of them, like these other things that he created, like this island that has a propeller on it, and these other things that have these different things. And it's like, if I take too long, it's going to just take too long. So
to even go further into that, there's
yeah.
a few things that I'm actually super curious about.
Yeah.
A bunch of artists are getting signed, whether
Right.
that's on bigger indie projects, whether that's the Dynamite, Dark Horse, Zenescope, DC, Marvel, Image.
Right.
Everybody's getting signed. It's the last 20 months. I think more people who are on the indies have been at least noticed and are getting knocked on, and their doors are getting knocked on.
Yep.
And so if you have a big series and you want to use one artist, well, it could be very hard to maintain that artist. It could be hard to, get that artist interested. But when they're only drawing 8 pages,
Right.
they're only drawing, so many panels or something of that nature. Well, they could bang out, 8 pages. If it takes them a day, it's a week project for them.
Right.
On top of the fact that, and even going further, some of these people are your friends, some of these people you never got to work with, and you're also getting to give people a bunch of work and give them an opportunity to be part of a book. And then also we get into marketing, and these people now, if you have, 3 different artists working on this book, or 5 different artists, and that means that 6 more people can help, and they're not competing with each other too.
Right.
And so there's a lot of benefits to doing that. So was that part of your thought process going through? Or was I want to do my friend's work?
Yeah, and some of it was just like, I really, and I don't do it with all of my creator-owned stuff, but a lot of my stuff tends to, I do rely very heavily on kind of like iconic things. Like with my Pistol Fist comic is very, like, I went very iconic with his mask, and I've done that with a lot of different things. But for this too, like I gave Nemo the streak in his hair that looks kind of like a lightning bolt, but it's also supposed to be there to be like an N. But like I did that with him. His sister looks very different. She's more girly. It's just the way she is and the way she was. Although she doesn't necessarily act like that, but she does dress like that. And then her and then having the vehicle, because I created the vehicle too. And so some of it too was like just that. Like I have these different iconic elements of it, just the same way, you know, with like Batman, Spider-Man, and things like that, where you have these specific things, and then you just want to see the way that like other people draw it and other people interpret it, and the way that they have like the movements and things with it. I mean, it's just yeah, I mean, and I just think it's variety for the readers and stuff too. I'm not super crazy about anthologies really, because I've seen them really kind of go wrong, but at the same time too, it's just, I don't know, just for this it felt right. And but yeah, for like the reasons you mentioned though too, I mean, it's a lot, it's not so much of a burden on any one artist or whatever, and drawing can be really time and labor intensive, and they never really get paid what they're worth.
Yeah, and I'm learning this the hard
Oh
way.
yeah.
I
Yep.
was going to be booking my own variant, and finding artists is hard, planning it is hard,
Hmm.
understanding it is hard, and it gets expensive very, very quickly. And also, even just finding the right people. Now, obviously, I have an advantage because I speak to all these artists and I
Right.
speak to all these writers, and I had somebody in mind, and they were down for it. If I was going to throw something to them, and they were very reasonable and they were very quick. But the idea is that a lot of people, you know, it's also the passion that somebody brings to the table,
Right.
and you know, there's just a million things that has to go into it, and well, drawing can exhaust you, and then well, you know, if you're paying somebody a page rate of $150, and you know that might be on the high end on an indie book, and
Right.
then there's another book that's going to pay them 300, you know,
Yep.
where do you think they're going to go? Especially if they're young and they don't have money and they don't have the ability or they don't have an equity claim in this.
Oh yeah.
Especially if they haven't even started drawing your book yet,
Right.
you know, they might just return the money and say, "I'll see you later."
Yep.
So you know, it gets super tricky. So obviously, I don't want to press too much into the business side of things. I think that anybody who wants to go look that stuff up really can go do that.
Yeah.
So
Well, that's the
obviously,
reality. I mean, it is the entertainment business.
it is a brutal business. It is a complicated business, and you know it can drive anybody crazy because it is very, very difficult to navigate,
Oh yeah.
and it is not easy to do it. Anybody who says this is easy to do it, you're lying. Just hands down.
There's a lot of people, well, you might have even talked to them too. There's a lot of people that get into it thinking that it's going to be easy, or thinking it's going to be easier than other things, and it's like it's so competitive.
There are things that I've learned in the last 36 hours
Yeah.
that I was not aware of that make a lot of sense, that have influenced the decision that I'm going to be announcing
Yeah.
probably in the next 3 to 4 weeks. And somebody gave me just a little bit of information, and I'm like, okay, now I know where I'm at
Right.
in this entire industry of things.
Right.
But I don't want to talk too much about it on air because it is a very private issue.
Yeah.
I don't want to start making enemies out of
You're
people.
such a flirt.
No. But it's the inner business, and it's the
Right.
stuff that's always behind closed doors. And
Oh yeah.
the person didn't give me any, they gave me just a spark that
Yeah.
made it all make sense. They were like the connecting piece. It's the
Yep.
weirdest thing in life that like, but it opened up their complete eyes, and now I see the entire entertainment business completely different
Yeah.
in certain spaces. But anyway, I want to talk about rewards, and I got lazy,
Uh-oh.
everybody. So we're going to show the Kickstarter instead.
That's
It's
fine.
going to be so much easier. It's going to look so much nicer.
Hopefully.
And so obviously we're going to talk about the rewards, and I'm just going to scroll down, And obviously, I'm going a little bit slow so we can actually see the Kickstarter here. It looks pretty sweet. So there's a bunch of variant covers.
Yeah.
So I think this is the first one, and
Yeah. Yep.
it's pretty interesting. It's
It's a Ben 10. I
bin,
spelled
bin,
it different,
bin
but
10, bin 10. That's
yeah.
what we're going with.
Uh-huh.
So what prompted this one?
I wanted to do some variants of like popular stuff, and especially more like kid adventure, kid action stuff. And this was one of the ones that I mentioned. This is one of the ones where the artist was like, it's like, I want to draw the Ben 10 one. So I'm like, okay, you can draw the Ben 10 one. And this is one of those things too, where I have helped out. I have helped bless you. I
Thank
helped
you.
I helped the artist out sometimes, and so he wanted to help me out by doing this cover, and so I gave him the choice of which one he wanted to do, and he wanted to do the Ben 10 one.
No, it's bin 10. I don't want to get shut down or sued.
It's fine. It's an homage.
And then there's this one also, which is really cool.
Chibi. That one I drew myself.
I don't know who this JS Earl guy is.
Yeah. But yeah, that was.
So what's the deal with this one? Because this one is super interesting. It's definitely got a Japanese vibe to it.
Oh yeah.
It's got very much almost a stamp, old school.
Yeah.
I mean, I think definitely like 1950s World War II type poster, and there's all these people in there. And where did this idea even come from? Because it is a super cool cover.
Yeah, I definitely I wanted to do a chibi one. I've never drawn any kind of chibi thing, and I just thought it would be fun, especially since it's kid-oriented thing. And I figured some kids will like it, some adults that like cute stuff like that will like it. And then when I just had the image, I was like, it looks really plain. Like I feel like it needs a background. I didn't just want to do a typical normal background. I was like, yeah, like exactly like you said. I wanted to do more of an old-timey thing and kind of imitate the way that they do a lot of their posters and stuff that I've seen. And so I just kind of tried to copy and mix a bunch of those things together.
And then I'm going through this one. This one's kind of cool because this is a porthole, and since we're on a submarine, a ship, and all that stuff, and we're at the sea, this is just fun. It's also very much like papery.
Yeah, it's like paper art. Yep.
Yeah. So what prompted this? Because this one's wicked, and you also did this one.
Just again, same kind of thing. Just thinking about, especially because like the icon and stuff that I made for it is very specific, but it's also very simple. I was like, I wanted to do something simple like that. I do, and I think a lot of the simple stuff looks really good in like paper art style. And I just I had seen a lot of stuff like that I liked. So I was like, I'll make one of those. I mean, part of my intention with the variant covers is I wanted to give a wide variety of styles of stuff so that people could either really pick what they like, or else they could get, all of them, and they would have an actual variety. It wouldn't just all be the same American style of art or whatever. Just give them a bunch of different varieties.
And then obviously this one, which is super old school.
Yeah.
I've seen like some old school funny books.
Yeah.
That are done like this that are not appropriate to show. But it's there's some really funny stuff out there that looks like this. So
oh yeah.
What was this like? Because obviously there's another one you did.
Yeah, wanted to do like an homage to Peanuts, Charlie Brown, and then also do especially well, and just that, and that's kind of like his sister, and she always is like picking on him and stuff. So I just felt like that was a perfect combination. But also I also, and just even though I don't even think there ever was a Little Golden Book version of Charlie Brown, but I just decided to mix the two because I thought it would be fun. So to just do that homage.
And then we get into this stuff, which is another Dan Strata cover, and
Mm-hmm.
this one is sort of trippy and cool, and a little
Yeah.
bit different than the other things, where it's got a little bit more of a posh feel, if you will.
Well, and that's the way a lot of those covers were way back originally when Jules Verne was doing his. A lot of the covers looked a lot like this. And I thought the next one is one of him, but I also that I call this the vintage covers. But I would thought it would be fun to have a cover too, especially for any of the girls who got it and wanted to have their own thing or be able to choose. I was like, it'd be kind of fun to have. So I got Nemo the Lad do Anna the Lass, and because Anna is his sister, so I thought she deserved at least one cover of her own.
And then obviously we get that one, which is very
Yep.
similar,
Yep.
which is Nemo. And then we get this right here, which is
John. I call it Johnny Quest. It's Johnny Quest. Yeah. And yep. And I just thought that would be fun to do that. So I kind of copied some classic Johnny Quest pose, and then also I don't know if I'm going to bring it in because it honestly depends on how many issues or what kind of graphic novel or whatever we get to do. But Nemo did in the novel have a pet seal. So that was named Esmeralda. So that is actually why I put the seal there. Because if we have time, we might bring in a seal into it.
And then I think this is just party animals, and this one's just very trippy.
Oh yeah, and this is by a fantastic Spanish. Well, I'm trying to think. He's European. He's done stuff in France and Germany and a bunch of stuff. The crazy thing about this, and I did not know this until he actually told me, and then I actually looked it up. That he was actually, I was like, oh, I should have given him the Ben 10 cover because he actually did the character pages, like the character reference sheets for Ben 10. So he would have been perfect for that. He actually also, this guy also worked on Captain Planet and some other things like that. And now he's just really developed his style is just like very kind of wild and very artsy and I love it. Yeah, his name is Fur Calvi, and he is fantastic. He does some incredible art.
And then there's almost, I think, a custom cover you could get too, where you're drawing the porthole instead of another person, and so that's an option.
As people, as when we get to the pictures of the I call them Scooby-Doo pictures because of the style I drew them in. But I did pictures for each one of the collaborators, each one of the artists or whoever the letterer and everybody who was involved. I did like a cartoony picture of them, thinking it would be a little bit more kid friendly and stuff too, to do something like that. But then we've had like a lot of compliments on those pictures. So that's why I was like, well, I had this. If anybody wants it, they can do one like that, and I'll draw them in.
And then obviously this is what we're talking about right here.
Yep.
So I'm just gonna go really quickly through.
Yep.
A lot of people just dropped into this.
Yep.
And obviously, I'm gonna sort of remove this, and there's some other rewards too.
Right.
To talk about. So obviously those are the 8/9 covers. And then there's also the digital copy. You get it digitally. Obviously, I think you get any of the 8, and I think you've made it quite simple where I think they're all the same price.
Yeah, I've tried to.
And so, I mean, are any different from the 8, or are they all just you pick whatever one you want?
No. Any of the covers I did have the new thing different, but then I had some people that were confused by it. So I'm like, that's fine. I'll just put it in. I'll put it in with the other. Just to keep it simple, and so people can just choose from them all, and because I think that's one of the problems of a lot of some Kickstarters too. Is just it's so confusing.
It gets very messy sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes you think you're getting cover A, but then you wind up with cover B.
Right.
And then I have to go. So I just backed a Kickstarter, and I just backed the Witches of Westchester because I'm from Westchester, New York.
Yeah.
So I thought it was pretty funny. And then
Nice.
at
Yeah.
first
Yeah.
I thought they were referring to something in London, and then I realized that they have like something like Werewolves of Brooklyn, for instance, or Vampires in New Jersey. And I'm like, oh, it's Westchester, New York. It's very funny.
Yeah.
And I double checked which was which, but it took me an extra like 10 minutes to make sure.
Yeah.
Because what I like when Kickstarter is they like cover C, or they say, okay, why don't you tell me which cover you want, and they go by the artist's name. But
Right.
when that Kickstarter legitly has like 30 covers.
Right.
Now, it's not 30 covers of the same thing. There's holofoils.
Right.
And not 30 different covers. It's 30 covers over the course of like the 8 done in 10 different ways.
Right.
But it's very confusing. So I think it's cleaner. And I think a lot of people can learn a lot of lessons from the cleaner you make it, the easier it's going to be.
Yeah, because it already, I mean, there's a lot of people that get overwhelmed really easily anyway. So it's like the easier you can do it. And I mean, that's one of the advices that they have.
Right?
Huh?
You know who Ben Dunn is, right?
Yep.
Ben Dunn just did the Swimsuit of Ninja High School. There was 7 options for his rewards.
Wow.
Legitly, it was a digital. No, there wasn't even 7. There might have been 5. You could get the digital. You get a soft cover. You could get a soft covered sketch signed. You get a hardcover or a hardcover sketch signed. There was 5 options. Or you could get like a bundle of both. There was like 6 options or 7 options. But the idea is that was super easy. There was nothing complicated about it. You didn't even need to look at the images, and it was one and done.
Right.
And you were getting. So I thoroughly enjoy things like that where it's easy. I also know that you have your Chess Age game. That's also a reward.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm really bad.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I've just had people asking about some of this stuff, so I'm like, well, if there's anything, it's like I'll just put some things up there. Some of them are limited. Like I only have one set of my like Pistol Fist thing, and I only have there's what's his face, the one, it's comic called The Space, and it was a sketch cover done by him, the guy that drew Ramos, yeah. And that's an extremely rare, limited thing. And I was just like, I'll put this in here for anybody that wants it, because we got to raise as much money as we can. I don't know if you saw it, but we also have, and I think we still have one left. I was surprised there were there were some of the first things to go, but we have some like steampunk recycled art sculptures, because and they're semi-custom, because actually my neighbor of where we moved during the pandemic is a steampunk recycled art sculpture guy, and he offered to do some sculptures for this, so we included that in the thing. So
and obviously the cool stuff about Pistol Fist and all that stuff is that it's obviously alternative history,
right?
And it's done by Francesco Tomaselli. I think I got his name right.
Yeah, he did the cover of that.
Yeah, he did the cover for it.
And then and the interiors are done by Andre Guinaldo, who did a lot of the he's done a lot of stuff for Marvel and DC, but he did a lot of the Justice League Dark issues. He also did Gotham City Sirens, and he also was the artist on the Blade Runner 2019 comic that was out recently and did really well. So, and that was before he hit it big with Marvel and DC, because that was like 15 years ago when he drew Pistol Fist for me.
And so that's super limited, and that's just a pain in the ass to get.
Especially those. And especially the fact of just that I signed them and stuff too. For anybody that, because I've been getting more people that they'll get stuff and they'll say, I want you to sign it. And I'm like, okay. I don't think I'm ever going to be that famous, but I will sign it for you.
And so that's up there. And then you have also stuff where you worked on the Meg, and you have the blue cover.
I got some of those.
Edition. I think there's either two of the blue or one of each?
Yeah, because the white cover is very was a lot more limited than the blue cover. I think the blue cover you can get pretty easy on Amazon, but you can't get it signed. I mean, it's signed by me and the artist. But I mean, you can get them signed obviously after you after you buy them. But
No. You're forbidding them from getting it signed.
yeah,
So
it's
you
just you
buy it.
cannot get it signed. It's illegal. But just
So,
for anybody that wants it.
and so obviously even just getting stuff like that, because this stuff is super limited. And
Yeah.
the blue cover, as you stated, I think is easier to find. But it's
Yeah.
that white one that if you're a fan of the Meg, you enjoy the movie. This
Yeah.
was obviously a graphic novel adaptation of the movie. And
It's
well,
actually of the book, which is a lot better and more exciting than the movie was. And more bloody.
fair enough. Fair enough. I only saw the movie, so that's what I'm going off of, and I
Yeah.
thoroughly enjoyed the movie for what it was.
Oh yeah, because if you haven't read the book, you wouldn't know.
But I also saw the movie
Oh
not
yeah.
in a movie theater. I saw it like on Netflix or Hulu or
Right.
something,
Right.
and I didn't
Yep.
pay for it. So it was
Right.
also better because I didn't pay for it,
Right.
which is
Yeah.
probably not the
Exactly.
appropriate thing to say to somebody who wrote a
Yeah.
adaptation
I know.
that's definitely tied to the book or movie. So there you
Yeah.
go.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't think it was terrible. I just thought for a shark movie, there was a surprising lack of blood. But
Hey, it was better than the Flying Piranha movie, but that's not the
yeah.
point. So having said all that, obviously you also have, retailer packs, which is always helpful because I'm now entering that stage. I actually just listed last night my first Kickstarter retail book
Mm-hmm.
that I'm selling. So I'm on that journey as an eBayer. I'm
Mm-hmm.
hoping it does well. I don't know, but hoping for the best.
Yeah.
Obviously we just spoke about the custom, sculptures and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Am I missing anything? That's the question, because
No,
there's
I
a
don't.
lot of variety in this Kickstarter.
Yeah. Yeah. And honestly, it's just because it was kind of slowing down a little bit, so I just started adding some more things and just things that people had mentioned before. Just that they had talked to me about, hey, I'd like to get this or I'd like to get that, and I'm like, well, I might as well throw them on the Kickstarter to hopefully benefit that and be able to raise the money to be able to pay the artists and the letterer and everything. So
And so obviously there's a lot of rewards, and people should back this. And we're going to talk about COVID Kickstarter and cons in a second here. But you put something very interesting up on your Kickstarter, and I'll disclose something as well because I think it's a really good conversation. Obviously you have a disability.
yeah,
I don't think I'm breaking anything right now.
no.
And so obviously, you used to, do a lot of drawing, and you do a little less drawing now. You do a lot more writing. You should.
I do a lot less drawing now, but
We spoke about this the first time.
yeah. Yep.
But what is that like? Because obviously, getting anything funded in India is difficult.
Oh, yeah.
I don't think it's a disability exclusive problem, but also when people have disabilities and getting projects funded and all that stuff,
Oh, yeah.
it's just whether no matter where you stand on the issue,
Right.
it's always harder for people who have disabilities to get things accomplished. And it's always amazing when you see a person with a disability sell $1 billion business, because the obstacles they had to overcome
Right.
is significant. I use that as an extreme example because everybody gets it immediately.
Right.
And so the reason why I bring all this up is that what is this like for you? Because without the funding of Kickstarter, disability, non-disability, this project really can't happen. And I think people need to understand
Right.
that's an issue. And that's why it's important to pledge to this Kickstarter. And that's why it's very important to project, because if you like it, it's important. But even the fact that, projects like this, when they're being backed by people who have disabilities, you got to support that shit.
Yeah, no, I think, and honestly, I mean, one of the, and for a long time, I don't know how long, I didn't really say a lot publicly for a long time, just because I didn't want to I don't know, whine about it or whatever. But when I started to say a little bit, just because I ran into some times where just really rough times, um, with like my hands locking up and just extreme pain and a bunch of other stuff. But then I found out from a lot of other people as I was kind of just sharing a little bit, and they saw me dealing with stuff, or they would see me like when I've been more hurting or whatever, and they'd see me like wearing braces and stuff on my hands. And I they would like tell me like how inspired they were to even though they had severe issues or some disabilities, that it kind of inspired them to push and try to do some things that they have wanted to do. And I've actually had people that have like become writers and become like other things, after like talking to me or hearing about the stuff that, and just seeing me pushing through and doing the stuff, and just doing the best you can, even if you end up doing stuff late or whatever. But I try not to. I try to, like, because there are days when I can't really function or do very much, and then so then I got to make them up on the other days. But then it's just a lot of it is kind of like what they say about working smarter, not harder. Because right when I was breaking in, I was actually recovering from like double like hand surgery, and so I had to use dictation devices and stuff to write my scripts and things. And I use Final Draft, which is screenwriting software, which is very intuitive, which helps too. Doesn't help when you try to write sci-fi and fantasy because it's not used to those words very well, but just the fact that it's very intuitive, so that it will automatically prompt you if if your two characters are having a discussion, it will jump to the other character then on the next thing, so you don't have to sit there and say, okay, Jack talks to Jill talks to Jack, or like you don't have to do, like, it will automatically go, okay, well, you just had Jack talks Jill, and it'll do stuff like that makes it a lot easier. And there's so many things out there like that now, and the problem is, like, we have to get our eyes off of ourselves and our problems and look for the solutions, and even just talk to people and find out. And
Yeah, I find that what's going on, and this isn't disability related, and it's my biggest gripe with people is that, and I'm about to attack a whole bunch of comic people. I find comic people to be the most creative people in their scripts and in their books,
right,
and the indie realm and in general. But when it comes time to marketing their products and marketing their books and engaging with people and actually getting it in front of people and having social media content that's good, they become the least creative. Obviously we were speaking, and we're not going to talk about what I have coming out, but one of my ideas is brilliant for so many reasons, and nobody has done it, and I'm purposely keeping it a secret because the second it drops, it's going to be gone. When I drop it within minutes, it's going to be gone within minutes. If anybody is smart and knows what it actually means, and its marketability. But it's the idea that that's what I find. I think a lot of people aren't looking for solutions, and they're saying, "Oh man, I'm overwhelmed with problem A or B or C. I had to get my Kickstarter. We just had a goal of $6,000, and we just got over the hump, and we got 6,500. Cool, I could take a breath. When really, you need to figure out a better social media plan."
right,
And I think that's one of the biggest problems in comics right now is that people aren't focused on solutions. They're focusing on how I'm going to just get over this obstacle versus long-term solutions. And I'm figuring out long-term solutions. I have a form that if you hit me up and you want to be a guest on my show, and I get requests all the time, legitimately up to about 2 weeks ago, I was doing everything manually. Now you fill out a form, and it gets into a gigantic Excel sheet. I check that sheet every Thursday, and that's how I book. And not everybody on that sheet's going to get a position on my show.
Right.
I still do certain people manually, and certain people are solicited, and certain people are solicit me. But guess what? Now I have actually real selectivity, and people have submitted things that aren't coming up till November. So that's
Wow.
also very helpful that I have somebody booked in October. I have 2 people booked in October. We are in September. It is September 8th
Yeah.
and we're doing this episode. Guess what? That's beyond helpful because it's up on my docket now, and now I know that this is how we're booking. So if somebody wants to book for the middle of March of 2022, I'm open to that.
Yeah.
I had no problem booking that far in advance.
Yeah.
But I've changed because I understand now I have to change and evolve. So I think that that's one of the biggest gripes I have.
Yeah, and I was going to say kind of a little bit like what you're saying. I mean, I think part of the problem is too that people don't know that they have a problem because they think social media or whatever works a certain way, and it doesn't work that way. Especially, I'm saying this to people wanting to do Kickstarters. The like there are people who will post 5 times a day on all different platforms like for a month, and after their Kickstarter is over, somebody who follows them on social media will say, I didn't even know you had a Kickstarter going on. And the guy's like, I've been posting 5 times a day on all these different things. And there are people that don't understand that even if you do it that much, there are still going to be people who don't see it because there is so much, content and so much stuff
goes even further than
on
that.
social media.
There are people who don't. I come from the world of operations and logistics.
Right.
When I am doing 185 interviews, and there are people in this realm who, and I can say this openly, there's about 15 people who have started shows after mine who've been on my show, and then they start a show 2 weeks later.
Right.
A bunch of them are not around because they don't have the one thing that matters. It's operations and logistics. I run this thing like a military operation is run.
Yeah.
And I run it as if I know what I'm doing and what's happening with it. And there's a reason why it works. Because I have a writing schedule, I bang it out, and it works a certain way.
Right.
So, and most people don't understand that you have to run your project a certain way, and it's called operations and logistics. And that's the problem, I think, with a lot of Kickstarters and a lot of people in this sector is that they have no operations and logistics being implemented.
Yeah. Well, and they have to, and that's when you realize that you have to do everything if you're wanting to do Kickstarter or you're wanting to self-publish, it's like then you need to know everything that you have to do, and a lot of people, it's a lot to do. Honestly, that's why I would prefer to do both. I prefer to work with publishers and do Kickstarters, especially because nowadays most publishers like Scout and other ones, they're used to that. Like, because they barely have enough money to be able to print the books and distribute it, not to be able to pay the creative teams unless you're like a super popular person. So they're used to people funding stuff on Kickstarter and things like that. And it's like, to me, I'm like, why not be in both places? Why not be? Because honestly, with all the research and everything I've seen too, it's like 2 very different audiences too. You're going to hit. There's a lot of people on Kickstarter that buy books and things that will never go into a comic store. And it's like, why limit yourself to one or the other? It's like, why not shoot for both?
So to even talk about that, because obviously, where do you think the future of comics are going? Because I've had this discussion with somebody, I think last night, and the medium isn't dying; it's just evolving.
Right.
So I'm super curious where you see it going, because obviously, and it goes even into cons, I think, as well, where that medium isn't necessarily dying, but it's evolving. It has to go through an evolution. Parts of it need to sort of die a little bit.
Right.
And I'll be the first to say, I may never ever go back to a convention. There is nothing there for me at a con, because I legitimately network with everybody I want to network on the internet.
Right.
I've met more creators in the last 20 months when I started this in March of 2020. And at this stage in the game, it's just a matter of, why would I want to limit myself to a 30,000 person con where 1% of that 30,000 might be potentially interested, and then 300 people out of that. So now we're talking about 0.01% of the people at something, and I've never gotten a like on my Facebook page. I've handed out tons of business cards. I've given out pins, and none of that has ever come back to me in the form of likes. I run a
Right.
$20 Facebook ad. I legitimately have gained 100, people like my page and
Right.
turned that around for at least 6 months.
Yep. Yeah, and then just like you're saying with a lot of this, I mean, so much is this the consistency and stuff too. I mean, it's just keep doing it and keep getting things out there. One of the things that I have found that's really helped me, I did it a little bit before, but I didn't until this Kickstarter. I didn't go as hard into it as I have now. As far as, although I enjoy some planning and organization and everything, but I've really been using Hootsuite a lot for my social media posts, which I really recommend people who, if you're not going to spend the time to research when the best times to post and things like that are, then use their like auto post function, because it will post it when on the different mediums. It doesn't post it at the same time. Like, you sync up all your accounts and then it'll post it when the better times are for those things. And it will even follow kind of like with your hashtags and things like that you're putting in. It will say, okay, these hashtags are more popular around this time, and it'll do. And like for me, some of it though, like right when we first launched, I had it set up so that it would be putting something out on all my social media everywhere, like once an hour. And I hit different things. I would do it from different, like in 1 hour, it would be sharing something about one of the people who's on the creative team. Another hour would show one of the variant covers. Another hour would show like a panel from a comic or like whatever. Like each one would be a different thing. And I think that's the big thing too, kind of like you're saying too, about just like knowing the business, knowing the marketing, is like you have to realize that there are different personality types and everything too. So you need to do your stuff in different ways to diversify it so you can appeal to those other people, because there are people who just want facts and figures. And so you need to make some posts like that where you're not trying to be all flowery or fancy, and you're just saying, okay, this is the problem. This is why I need it. This is how much I need. And it's like, and that's it. I mean, and there's a certain sector of people that is their personality, and that's how you connect with those people. And then other people, you're going to have to appeal to, whatever, their heart more, or like whatever. It's just, you have to realize that you are serving other people, if you want them to be able to, help you out and do your stuff. And I don't know. Yeah, I definitely have a lot of thoughts on those things and advice for people. But especially like, man, if you are a gun ho driven person, you don't have disabilities, you are not married, like whatever, it's like, man, it's like there's a lot that you can do, but you can't. So many of us, I mean, probably me and you included. I mean, we think we know more than we do until we find out that we don't know as much as we thought we did. I mean, because we know, little bits here and there of the different things, and then it's like, oh, really? Yeah. Okay. And then there's things that change too. Instagram is always changing, like what their algorithms are tracking and stuff like that. So it's like either you're into it or you're not, and you can't complain when you get bad results if you're not really doing your research.
Or you got to find a different strategy. I have like
Yeah.
15 different strategies up,
Yep.
and what I do, and there's also a baseline strategy with social media, and there's
Right.
a variety of ways to do this. And because sometimes you just want to just have a presence. I have a big
Oh
social
yeah.
media presence, but I don't have a big engagement, and obviously I could always improve upon it. But I'm posting 8-9 things a day.
Yeah.
And the only reason why I'm doing that is because guess what? When you're not active on Kickstarter and pushing something out, you need to have a baseline. It's very
Yeah.
important to have a baseline. But
Oh
this is
yeah.
a whole big thing that we could probably talk about for the next hour easily.
Oh yeah.
And so obviously, we spoke about a lot of Kickstarter stuff last time. We spoke about, what do you feel about COVID? Just quickly, where
About
COVID's going
about
and
about COVID. Well, I will say this too, because I am kind of a history buff, so I have like studied a lot about the Spanish flu and things like that, and when that pandemic hit, and a lot of stuff that happened, and there's a lot of stuff we're repeating the same things. Where they had, you can look up 100 years ago, they had things in the newspapers where the cartoons are making fun of people wearing masks and how to wear them wrong and stuff like that. And there's all these. We're doing a lot of the same stuff. I and there's just the problem is everything is so politicized. So you have like one extreme or the other, and there's
So,
the
so,
truth is always kind of in the middle. So
so where do you think cons are going for the next 4 months? Because obviously, the big question I have is I'm on the East Coast. I'm in
right,
Connecticut right now. I used to live in New York. I lived in DC. And I personally am not going to a con if I ever go back till June.
right,
Okay, it's just a personal choice because, well, I want to let the dust settle. I want to see where everything is going, and I
yeah,
want to see how things are run. Because if I do go back, I'm going for economic reasons, where it
right,
has to be that it has to be social media and audience, appreciative. Where if I'm lecturing and I have a 500-person room that I fill up
right,
usually, and only 250 people are in that room because it's social distancing,
right,
I'm not so excited anymore. Versus the idea that I would imagine that if you're going to a con and that normally 50,000 people are there and that only 25,000 are there, it doesn't
right,
become as economically as exciting
yeah,
anymore, especially if they're charging you the same money or more money to be
right,
there.
right.
So, where do you think that conventions are going till this is relatively solved in the next 4 months, and then even in 2022, as my computer and my face is going in and out? I don't know if I could still be heard.
Yeah, you can. I can hear you. I can hear you. The yeah, I mean, I do think the next 4 months are going to be rough. I think in a lot of ways it's going to get better. Um, I still think they're going to have a lot of people that are hesitant, and things are going to be down. Because one of the big things too has gotten to be with cons with because of pop culture. In a lot of ways it has become a family thing, and you'll have a lot of families and stuff that will go, and it's just like family movies. I mean, that's a lot of money. That's a lot of people when you bring in four or five or six people or whatever. But it's uh that's going to be rough. I mean, I think that too, like anybody that really looks at this stuff, because like the Delta variant, everywhere it's come from, it's crashed. So it'll be really high, like it's been really high right now. It's gonna crash at some point. You got to keep your eye on India and the UK and everything. See how things happen there, because that's the way that all the germs and everything cycle and flow is from over there in Asia and India and stuff, and see what they're doing and what kind of variants and things they're dealing with, because we're going to get them after that, and we can kind of judge what's going to happen. Like right now it's terrible, and in Florida, like our hospitals are pretty full, and there's been a lot of people dying and stuff, and the but it's going to come down a lot. Like I know it drops by like 90% when it does go down, which should be soon. But at the same time too, who knows how soon another variant, another whatever is going to come out, and then we'll be dealing with that. I think for anybody that's making those kinds of business or financial decisions should probably be keeping an eye on like Asia and India and even the UK, and just see what's happening, how heavy the stuff is, because you can kind of predict within the next few months like what'll be happening. I mean, I know like my wife isn't going to be crazy about me going to any kind of con or any kind of store appearance or anything like that, and I mean it stinks because I like meeting people like that, and I actually like, what's funny, in all honesty, and this is part of the problem why a lot of comic people are not good at it, is there's a lot of, I will say, pros and semi-pros who do not genuinely like people, and they just don't like, they want to do, and it's not like they're haters, they're extremely awkward and uncomfortable, and they just want to do their art or just want to do their stuff, and they're not, I mean, there's a few that it's like said, it's like I hate people, like I don't like I don't like being around people, and it's like that's a problem when you're depending on their money to fund your stuff. You got to figure out a way to, I don't know, to change your
I feel you.
mind, or, and but it's like, I don't know. I find, I don't know. To me, people are interesting. Everybody has their own different personalities and stuff. I think people are can be. Yeah, I'm like, yeah, it's like anybody. There's people that get under my skin and people that tick me off, and but I don't know. But I'm surprised by how many people in the entertainment industry, where you're supposed to be entertaining other people, just really don't like people.
No, I feel you on that one, and I'm sure we could have a whole big conversation on that. But I do want to give you because I've been speaking for a while, and obviously I want people to
That's
back
fine.
this project. So where can people find this project? Where can people back it on Kickstarter? Where can people check you out on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all that stuff?
On most of the social media, I'm at Earls JS, because there's apparently a lot of J Searlses out there, so I can never hardly ever get a JS Earls on anything. So it's basically, so like on Twitter, on Instagram, on Facebook, I think it's pretty much at Earls JS. Pretty much any of the social media places. I'm probably more on Facebook because I communicate to a lot more people on there, and that I work with, because I do. I'm involved with quite a few podcasts and things too, so I work with a lot of people on there. Um, and right now, it's mainly, yeah, the Nemo the Lad is on Kickstarter, and you can pretty much just look it up by putting Nemo the Lad, or and we just got. They told me today that we just got the projects we love things. So you can even go to that list. There's like a list of those, although there's always a lot of them because it's all different categories. But you can find it on that list. It's easiest just to go there and just, honestly, you can probably even just put Nemo, and there aren't that many, especially not that are current. Leon, there's some old Nemo things that are on there, but yeah, that's I would just go there and put Nemo the Lad, and put it on there. And we've only got about another like 10 days left. I think it's the 16th or something like that is when the thing ends. So we don't have too many more days left. And yeah, I want to fund it. I'm semi confident we will fund. Um, I'm hoping. Uh, yeah, we've been a little behind, so we definitely need help. And honestly, man, I would love if people just went there and just checked it out, just to help out the algorithms and stuff like that of putting having traffic on our page, even if you weren't going to be able to fund or do anything.
And so obviously, I've been saying this with everybody, you have to support indie comics.
Yeah,
And what that means is that you have to go back Kickstarters. So when they're live, you got to go back them. And then when they're not live, if people have web stores, you got to go pick it up there. If they get into stores, you got to go pick it up. But even more important than that, you actually have to share it,
yeah,
tweeting at it, tweeting at a creator, retweeting it, liking it, sharing it on your wall, sharing it on Facebook pages, sharing it on Instagram, or hardening on Instagram. If you get the book, write a review on it or do a video review. That helps tremendously as well. Anything like that always helps. And obviously, following creators, liking Facebook pages, getting on people's email list, and staying notified is always a good thing. And also, somebody has a project, just messaging, saying, hey, did you see this to your friend? Because you never know who's watching. Sharing a Kickstarter on your Facebook wall, it might not seem like a big deal, but you never know who's looking at it. Might be like, oh man, I didn't see this. Thanks for showing this to me. And it goes a long way because it changes the game. Also, I'm an indie content creator. I have Buy Me a Coffee. So you could buy me, a coffee, which is basically $5. And all the money goes back to this show, whether that's equipment, even though I have a sponsor. My sponsor does not cover all of my equipment costs and the upgrades that are needed. So obviously you could do that, or if you're interested in having a live read on this show or being a guest on this show, that is another thing too that is offered on there. And you are pretty much, for $10, you are guaranteed a spot. And for 15, you get a live read. So obviously promoting your project, and we all know how Facebook ads work, and they are not good. So there you go. So that's an option, and it goes back to creators not being creative. There's a million ways how you can market something, and you never know where you can market something and who you can market with. because I put this into a bunch of groups and this gets marketed out. And well, if your head's right in the middle of it, you're getting an association ad out of it essentially. But that's a whole nother episode. And on that note, that's all I got. So I'm going to give you the final word.
I just, honestly, I would again just thank people for their support with the Kickstarter and what they have done and what they have shared, and honestly, even just people saying the stuff like they have, that it just kind of fills them with when they've seen some of the stuff or read it, just kind of fills them with joy or happiness or whatever, which is desperately needed these days. And so, I mean, I would definitely recommend it. I think if I wasn't the one doing it, I would also just say it's fun. I mean, and we need more fun. We need more fun stuff these days, and more kind of safe for the whole family stuff. It's just fun, but at the same time, cool. We have some cool vehicles and all kinds of different stuff in it. So, it's a good thing to back, and definitely back, like he said, back the indie creators, and definitely try to put put a link to the thing in whatever you post, because I've had a few people try to help me out by just posting a picture or something like that, and it's like, but nobody's gonna go to the they don't have a link to go to the thing. It's like, but I appreciate the effort. So thanks, Mom. No, people like that who are not quite as savvy and used to social media don't realize how much links really help people. And I'm not just saying that for me. I'm saying that for him and everybody else. I mean, it's the links and things and stuff that will really help out, especially when it comes to funding stuff like this.
And so I don't think I could have said anything better myself. So I believe that is a wrap.
Cool.